1800 hours Pakistan Standard Time. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Daman Zaman. The headlines. A meeting of the Federal Cabinet held in Islamabad today discussed the overall political and economic situation of the country. The government has allowed schools across the country to resume classes for grades 6 to 8 from tomorrow. The advisor to the Prime Minister on National Security says regional connectivity through economic corridor is the top priority of the government. An anti-terrorism court in Karachi today sentenced two main accused, Rehman Bhola and Zubair Cheria, in the Baldia factory case to death after being proven guilty of the crime. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism martyred a youth in Budgam district. The United States has imposed new sanctions on Iran while other members of the agreement rejected its demand to reinstate the United Nations measures that were lifted under the 2015 nuclear deal. And now the news in detail. A meeting of the Federal Cabinet was held in Islamabad today with Prime Minister Imran Khan in the chair. The meeting discussed the overall political and economic situation of the country. The government has allowed schools across the country to resume classes for grades 6 to 8 from tomorrow. Addressing a news conference in Islamabad today, along with the Prime Minister's Special Assistant on Health, Faisal Sultan, the Minister for Federal Education, Shafqat Mahmood, said following the decision of the federal government, Punjab, Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir have agreed to resume middle school classes from tomorrow. However, the Sindh government has decided a week's delay in implementing this decision, and the classes will not be resumed in Rawalakot, Azad Kashmir. Shafqat Mahmood said the decision has been taken after reviewing the countrywide health conditions and the spread of corona cases. The minister said decisions regarding resumption of primary school classes will be taken after another review meeting to be held next week. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has urged the international community to come forward to rid the oppressed Kashmiri people from the cruel Indian clutches. Chairing the sixth meeting of the Special Committee on Kashmir in Islamabad, he said Prime Minister Imran Khan, in his address to the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly, will draw the world attention towards atrocities unleashed by India in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The foreign minister said grave human rights situation in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and ceasefire violations by the occupying forces along the line of control are a matter of concern. He said the belligerent posture of India poses a grave threat to regional peace and security. MNA and patron-in-chief of the Pakistan Hindu Council, Ramesh Kumar, says the Indian police is hiding facts about the Jodhpur incident in India in which 11 Pakistani Hindus were mysteriously killed last month. In a meeting with the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi in Islamabad today, Ramesh Kumar said transparent investigation into the incident is not being carried out despite their forceful demand, and the Indian police is declaring the incident as suicide. The advisor to the Prime Minister on National Security, Dr. Moeed Yusuf, has said the economic corridor and regional connectivity are the prime priorities of the government. Talking to the ambassador of Turkmenistan and the Dean of Diplomatic Corps in Islamabad today, he said Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan and India gas pipeline project is in the completion phase. The Dean of the Diplomatic Corps said Pakistan can import fiber optic and electricity from Turkmenistan. He also appreciated Pakistan's role in establishing peace in Afghanistan. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism have martyred a youth in Budgam district. The youth was killed by the troops during a cordon and search operation jointly launched by the Indian Army, Central Reserve Police Force and police in Sharar-e-Sharif area of the district. Senior Hurriyat leader Professor Abdul Ghani Bhatt, speaking at a gathering in Sopore, said human rights violations being perpetrated by India in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are intolerable. Meanwhile, rights activist Muhammad Ahsan Antu has said he would approach the International Court of Justice for an action if seriously ill Kashmiri detainees are not provided medical treatment. Meanwhile, a protest demonstration was held by Muslims, Sikhs, and Dalits in Jammu against the abrogation of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, imposition of Hindi language, and agenda of hatred promoted by the Modi-led fascist Indian government in the territory. This is Radio Pakistan. A Chinese delegation led by its Consul General for Karachi, Li Biqian, called on the Sindh Chief Minister Syed Murad Ali Shah in Karachi today. The delegation expressed concerns over the devastation caused by recent rains in the Sindh province and handed over a cheque of 25 million rupees to the Chief Minister for relief work in the rain-hit areas of the province. The Chinese Consul General informed the Sindh Chief Minister on the occasion that his country will also extend help to the affected peasants in the province. The Sindh Chief Minister on the occasion said China has always extended help to the Sindh government in time of need. Pakistan has started phase 3 trials of a vaccine against COVID-19 developed by a Chinese company. In a tweet today, the Minister for Planning, Asad Umar, said 40,000 people in 7 countries will participate in this trial and 8,000 to 10,000 will be Pakistanis. He said initial results are expected in 4 to 6 months' time. Meanwhile, briefing media persons in Islamabad today, the Special Assistant on National Health Services, Dr. Faisal Sultan, described the clinical trial of COVID-19 vaccine as an important step to build the country's capacity in preparing other vaccines against different diseases. The Executive Director of the National Institute of Health, Major General Amir Ikram, said the vaccine is safe to the extent that it is now being administered to the security personnel in China. An anti-terrorism court in Karachi today sentenced 2 main accused, Rehman Bhola and Zubair Charia, in the Baldia factory case to death after being proven guilty of the crime. However, the court acquitted 4 co-accused in the case, including former provincial minister and MQM leader Rauf Siddiqui, for non-availability of solid evidence against them. It may be recalled that a factory was set ablaze in September 2012 in Baldia area of Karachi after its owners denied to pay extortion money, burning 260 workers to death. The United States has imposed new sanctions on Iran targeting arms sales after other powers rejected its demand to reinstate the United Nations measures that were lifted under a 2015 nuclear deal. American President Donald Trump issued an executive order that opens up foreign governments and companies to economic penalties if they sell weapons to Iran. He also announced sanctions against 24 entities and people involved in Iran's nuclear, missile, and conventional arms-related activities. Meanwhile, Iran's envoy to the United Nations, Majid Takht Ravanchi, tweeted that the United States' decision today to impose sanctions on Iran has no practical effect. Rather, it is a clear sign of desperation after its recent failures at the United Nations, which only added to United States isolation. Meanwhile, leaders of the 2 major Palestinian rival factions, Hamas and Fatah, are meeting in Turkey to end their internal divisions and achieve reconciliation. In a press statement, a member of Hamas, Khalil al-Hayya, said during a meeting with Turkish leadership, said a future plan will be discussed to face the current political challenges. Palestine has announced its decision not to chair the presidency of the Arab League in its current session. Talking to media in Ramallah, Foreign Affairs Minister of the Palestine National Authority, Riyad al-Maliki, said according to the Arab Peace Initiative in 2002, the Arab states can only normalize relations with Israel after Israel ends its military occupation of the Palestinian and Arab territories. And finally, the weather. Mainly hot and dry weather is likely to prevail over most parts of the country, while very hot conditions will prevail in lower parts during the next 12 hours. However, gusty winds are expected in South Punjab and Upper Sindh during afternoon. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website, radio.gov.pk, and you can also watch the live video streaming of our bulletins on the link, facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News.